Hello and welcome to A Bit Too Much to Think. This is my 10th video on sovereign citizens. And for it, I picked one that is a little weird. Now, if you're not familiar with sovereign citizens, they're essentially a group of people that pick and choose which laws to follow based on a really strange idea of how the law works in the United States, and sometimes they're in Canada. But this specific video is mostly investigating a conspiracy theory, whereas most of my other videos tend to discuss laws or court cases that may or may not agree with the sovereign citizens, but this conspiracy theory it's still worth discussing, as super bizarre as it is. So there's this idea out there, among sovereign citizens, that American flags frequently in court buildings represent that the court operates under Admiralty law rather than normal American law or common law. Now, why on earth do they say this is? Because the flags have gold fringe. Yep, this is one of those ideas. Sovereign citizens believe that the gold fringe is not simply decorative like any normal, sane human being would understand. Nope. The flag having gold fringe means that the court operates under Admiralty law, which is illegitimate if the person on trial is not in the Navy, or if the crime took place on land rather than on a boat in the ocean. There actually was a little bit in King of the Hill about this conspiracy theory. So here's the deal. There is literally no evidence to support this idea. This idea comes out of nowhere. I have no idea what they base it on, but I will do my best to show all the evidence I can that this theory is ridiculous. So the first place to look when talking about the flag is the US flag code. If the flag code says that gold fringe denotes a certain jurisdiction, or that it is illegitimate for a flag to have, then there must be something to it, right? Nope. There is one part that talks about the Navy, but it only says that the only thing that can fly higher than the flag of the US is the, quote, church pennant, which denotes a religious service being performed by a chaplain on that ship. It's an interesting little fun fact, but it's not what we're looking for. So if there's no rule about the flag itself, maybe there's rules about Admiralty court, right? Like, what court takes Admiralty cases? Let's dive in. Remember high school? Well, I try not to, but I do remember a little bit of what I learned. And in between asking Sally Smith to homecoming and my AP physics test, I do remember my government teacher telling me that Article 3 of the Constitution is the one that deals with the judiciary. And in Section 2 of Article 3 it says, quote, "The judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity arising under this Constitution, the laws of the United States and treaties made, or which shall be made under their authority, to all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls, to all cases of admiralty and maritime jurisdiction." So, according to the Constitution, it's just the courts of the U.S. that have jurisdiction over maritime law and admiralty law. So, there's not really some special admiralty court separate from the other courts. Looking at some U.S. codes, mainly this one, we see that it gives any admiralty jurisdiction to the district courts of the locality. On the U.S. Marshals website, they point out that the district courts are the ones with jurisdiction on admiralty cases. There's also a law mentioned on that website: Supplemental Rules for Admiralty or Maritime Claims and Asset Forfeiture Actions. But that's just about respecting due process when your boat gets seized because you're running cocaine or something. One of the sources that I use a lot, law.cornell.edu, sums it up pretty well. Quote, "Admiralty law in the United States developed from the British Admiralty courts present in most of the American colonies. These courts function separately from courts of law and equity. With the Judiciary Act, though, Congress placed Admiralty under the jurisdiction of the federal district courts." So, although Admiralty law is different, the court trying the case is the same. And you'll notice that none of these codes, laws, whatever, have anything to do with gold fringe on a flag. So, the last part worth talking about is a court case that has one of the funniest court orders I have ever read. If you like making fun of sovereign citizens, it's a really fun read, but it's a really fun peek into what this whole Admiralty court conspiracy rests upon. So this guy, his name is Mr. Greenstreet, was in court for some reason. I don't really know or care, you'd have to read more deeply into the case. And when your name sounds like the name of a rich guy in a Broadway musical, it's tough to make people care. So, the start of the fun antics of Daddy Warbucks from Annie here start with a paragraph stating, quote, Defendant Greenstreet has filed several documents with the court since this matter was initiated against him. The filings have routinely been voluminous and difficult to comprehend. Apparently, Mr. Greenstreet is of the opinion that our one Supreme Court, Republic of Texas, in and for Dahlem County, maintains exclusive jurisdiction over that case. He has challenged the court's jurisdiction and venue, and moved the court to dismiss the case against him. Mr. Greenstreet's requests were denied. So he thinks that there is only one Supreme Court of Texas that matters, I guess? Here's a hint. The one Supreme Court of Texas is something he made up. He's not referring to the state Supreme Court. And he basically says that the court he's currently being tried in doesn't hold jurisdiction. So then the court says, Greenstreet responded by filing a document entitled Notice of No Venue to the Statutory Admiralty Court. Parsing the response's imprecise, vague, argumentative, conclusory, and sometimes unintelligible prose, this court gleans that Mr. Greenstreet objects to the government's position on the following grounds. And then it lists why he claims that this court is illegitimate, which is more just rambling that there is some one Supreme Court over Texas that has the only jurisdiction of this case. Now, I have to say, I've read a lot of court documents in my day, being a pre-law student, and I have never seen someone describe a response as imprecise, vague, argumentative, conclusory, and sometimes unintelligible. It is absolutely perfectly describing the things that sovereign citizens write. Moving on, the order then says that he describes himself as a, quote, freeman character and of the white preamble citizenship, and not one of the 14th Amendment legislated, enfranchised, de facto colored races. He further claims that he is a white preamble, natural sovereign, common law, de jure citizen of the Republic/State of Texas. As a result, he concludes that he is a sovereign, not subject to the jurisdiction of this court. Greenstreet's argument is entirely frivolous. I'm not sure what else there is to really say about this passage. They kind of say it in just saying it's frivolous. Basically what he did is just made word salad. He just threw a bunch of words together to describe himself, and eventually he came out with kind of a sentence. Now, the decision ends with the discussion of the start of this video, gold and yellow fringe. The defendant, Mr. Greenstreet's response to the plaintiff's motion for summary judgment identifies this court as an Admiralty court. Others have attempted to persuade the judiciary that fringe on an American flag denotes a court of admiralty. This is amazing. So other people have argued this in the past. This is just one case. Other people have actually done this in the past. In light of the fact that this court has such a flag in its courtroom, the issue is addressed. The concept behind the theory that the proponent asserts is that if a courtroom is adorned with a flag, which happens to be fringed around the edges, such decor indicates that the court is one of Admiralty jurisdiction exclusively. To think that a fringed flag adorning the courtroom somehow limits this court's jurisdiction is frivolous. Unfortunately for defendant Greenstreet, decor is not a determinant for jurisdiction. So there was literally a court order written about this conspiracy theory. That's amazing. What's really funny is some poor paralegal had to sit there and pore over so many documents, because this court case was well before the internet was really a thing. So he or she had to go through and take every single book off of a massive law library shelf and look to try to find something on gold and yellow Fringe. Now, if you think this was the end to this conspiracy theory, you're wrong. Much like Dreams and Inception, it goes deeper. There is an even crazier sovereign citizen conspiracy theory that this one is based on. Join me next week when I dive into the deeper, weirder Sovcit belief. It will premiere 1 week after this video comes out. I hope you will join me on the journey down the rabbit hole. Or if you're watching this more than a week after it came out, check it out because it's already uploaded. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of A Bit Too Much to Think. If you liked it, leave a like. If you want to see more, subscribe. Especially if you want to see that newest video. It is a doozy. If you have more thoughts on the subject, please leave a comment. But I always say this at the end of my videos. Try to keep the comments relatively civil. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful day.